new naval base in Minicoy Island. Rafale set to roar in Western Indian Ocean region. India flaunts maritime prowess, top focus on India first.
The Maldives became a huge talking point this year after the elections installed a government there that was closer to China and not very friendly with India. That animosity and hostility came very violently to a head after Prime Minister Modi visited not the Maldives but Lakshadweep a few days ago. You remember that visit when the Prime Minister walked on the beautiful beaches of Lakshadweep, triggering an entire conversation about these islands and how ignored they really have been in the Indian conscience. You also remember how the Prime Minister's viral images in the Lakshadweep triggered a very, very ugly reaction from certain Maldivian ministers, precipitating a huge diplomatic standoff between India and the Maldives. Well, today, Maldives and China have signed a couple of very important strategic military agreements that actually worsens the distance now between India and Maldives. Maldives has tried to mend the situation, but the truth of the matter is China has been looking to utilize Maldives as a big base in the Indian Ocean, and that's the reason why India and Maldives have drifted apart. Well, India is not sitting on its hands. India has the Lakshadweep Islands, the islands that were put even more clearly on the map than ever before, perhaps, by the viral images of the Prime Minister, are now going to be the site of a brand new Indian naval base called INS Jatayu on an island called Minicoy, which is on the southernmost tip of the Lakshadweep Islands. The Lakshadweep, remember, is an archipelago consisting of several different islands, but it is the Minicoy Island, a tiny island, which is far south of the other cluster of the Lakshadweep Islands. That's what it looks like. It's a long island which is capable of hosting a brand new naval base called INS Jatayu, which will be commissioned by the Indian Navy Chief tomorrow at Minicoy, and we'll be there as well to report on it. Not just a naval base, an airstrip will also be coming up on this particular island, facilitating fighter and other military aviation operations. The reason why Minicoy Island is so important, and I'll show you with this distance, is that unlike the rest of the Lakshadweep Islands, the Minicoy Island is much further south, giving India much closer proximity to the Maldives, where the Chinese now want to set up their military strength. They've signed these deals. It's a lot of muscle flexing taking place in the Indian Ocean. Maldives is one of their big bases where they want to create that presence and try and offset the Indian Navy's domination of this particular space. But India has now hit back. I'm simplifying it, but the Lakshadweep will be the beginning of India's counter to China in this very, very rapid game of chess, strategic chess in the Indian Ocean. To understand things a little bit better, we could find no better expert than Commodore Jai Singh. He is not only a submariner, but someone who is the Vice President of the India Maritime Foundation, and also someone who understands strategic flexing in the Indian Ocean, perhaps better than most people, because he is a submariner, and the submarine element to what's going on is extremely important. Before I come to Commodore Jai Singh, however, I wanted to just play out for our viewers and to remind them of what India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, said just a couple of days ago, criticizing the Maldives for seeking Chinese military aid.
When you say India is perceived as a big bully, you know, big bullies don't provide $4.5 billion when the neighbors are in trouble. Big bullies don't supply vaccines to other countries when COVID is on, or make exceptions to their own rules to respond to food demands or fuel demands or fertilizer demands because some war in some other part of the world has complicated their lives.
So the Maldives has, firmed up its grip as its partnership with China goes to the next level. New military deals have been signed between Maldives and China. Maldives pushing India by virtue of these agreements a little further away. A former ally is now in some ways a kind of adversary, but that's the way politics works. But how has India responded? With, for starters, because nothing is ever so simple, a new naval base in Minicoy, which is just a few hundred kilometers away from the northern tip of Maldives. So basically, very, very close to Maldives, where China wants to exert control and flex muscle. Commodore Jai Singh, bringing you onto the show, first of all, thank you for your time and for your wisdom on this, complex and evolving issue, which you've looked at for a very long time in service and also in your present role with the Indian Maritime Foundation. How do you see the deals that the Maldives has now signed with China? That was, perhaps expected. It was in the offing. But more interestingly, INS Jatayu, which is going to be commissioned tomorrow in the southernmost island of the Lakshadweep, sir.
Thank you for inviting me on your show. Yes, this has been an interesting development. The one constant in the Indo-Pacific, which I've always believed, is the constant geopolitical churn that keeps taking place here. That's a very fast-moving dynamic, as you mentioned.
Yes.
And I think the elections in Maldives were quite a trigger for what is now going to play out, perhaps in the next few years, as the great game shifts from the Pacific to the Indian Ocean. But coming to your specific questions, yes, INS Jatayu is a great asset. It's not that India or the Indian Navy had not recognized the strategic importance of these islands all these years. We always understood the strategic importance of both the Andaman and Nicobar Islands on our eastern seaboard and the Lakshadweep group of islands on our western seaboard. And we had a token presence there.
Yes.
Because we didn't think that it required anything more than that in the prevailing security scenario in the Indian Ocean at that point of time. But I suppose as one moves on and the situation develops, we have to keep adapting ourselves to that. And I think Jatayu will be a great force multiplier. It sends a strong message, even though initially perhaps we may not raise force levels very drastically over there. But the fact that a small little naval detachment is now being a commissioned naval base sends a message. And I think that message was important to send from many perspectives, Maldives being just one of them, or the Chinese presence in the Maldives being one of them. As far as China was concerned, obviously, the very fact that they were wooing Maldives and they were trying to create a political situation where India was going to be, sort of on the back foot was very evident.
Yes.
This is not the first time it's happened in the Maldives. It had happened earlier also. And as far as China is concerned, they do nothing without strings attached. So Maldives also knew exactly what they were getting into. And I'm surprised that President Muizu, who already owes, I think, 1/3 of his GDP to China and is seeking a bailout from the International Monetary Fund, still has walked into this whole engagement with China with his eyes open and taking his country almost to the point of getting into a debt trap. Sri Lanka is a classic example right next door. But anyway, be that as it may, I think the Chinese military presence is inevitable in the Indian Ocean. And the closer they can get to India, the more it serves their purpose.
Yes.
Look, from a Chinese perspective, if you look at it, they feel a vulnerability in the Indian Ocean from India. Because India straddles most of the important sea lanes of communication that through which Chinese trade and energy plies.
Yes.
And that, if you remember, is called the Malacca Dilemma by China, that India can choke Chinese trade at the Malacca Straits.
Yes.
We are sitting astride the 9-degree channel, which is the main sort of shipping artery going to going east of Malacca into the Pacific countries. And I think from that perspective, China can always justify their actions, saying that we need to secure our own sea lanes of communication, so we are going to have a presence in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
And seeing the speed at which they are expanding the Navy, they're going to have a formidable presence in the Indian Ocean in maybe a few years from now, perhaps by the end of this decade.
Apart
both perspectives. Sorry.
Commodore Jai Singh, apologize for interrupting, but apart from INS Jatayu, and like you said, INS Jatayu is not specifically just about the Chinese or about Maldives, it's about the Indian Ocean in general. But in your view and your assessment, is the Indian Navy prepared enough, upgrading and, expanding fast enough to meet the challenges of this rapidly expanding Chinese Navy and its presence in the Indian Ocean, sir?
Yes, I think so. You see, we seem to always, Navy or force level comparisons are not a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean if they have 400 ships, we have 400 ships. It's about in your area of interest, what can they pit against you, and are you prepared for that? Now, India has always had a favorable maritime position in the Indian Ocean. We've rarely been challenged. We are the most powerful navy in the region.
Right.
The PLA Navy, despite its rapid expansion, it is at the moment numerically the largest navy in the world with more than 350 ships, still lacks, and I would like to emphasize it still lacks the confidence to operate as a blue water navy and project power in what they call their far abroad. They have 2 aircraft carriers at the moment. Neither of the 2 aircraft carriers has ever ventured beyond the second island chain.
Yeah.
Similarly, at any given time, we have a Chinese naval presence in the Indian Ocean. They come here to protect their ships against piracy and other sort of non-traditional threats. That's fair enough. In the open oceans, any navy can operate. And I also believe it is not a coincidence that, despite this tense standoff on the border for more than 3.5 years now, the 2 navies have never had any occasion to sort of encounter each other at sea. The Chinese Navy has kept well clear of the Indian Navy in the Indian Ocean over the last 3.5 years because they understand the limitations. They know they have limitations. However, that is not for us to become complacent about.
Yes.
Because the Chinese Navy, at the rate at which they're expanding, will be a 450-ship Navy by 2030, with 1/3 of their surface forces and submarines being blue water capable. 4 aircraft carriers.
Yes.
So we can definitely expect a carrier battle group presence in the Indian Ocean sooner rather than later. Is India ready for that? Yes, I think we are. And again, like I said, it is not about ship versus ship or submarine versus submarine. It's about what capability can we project in the Indian Ocean to check the Chinese presence.
What about submarines, Commodore Jai Singh? You're a submariner yourself, and this has been a specific sort of concern and worry as far as force levels are concerned. The increasing aggression with which China has upped its own submarine force levels. Chinese submarines have ventured, on occasion into the Indian Ocean, including their nuclear fleet. How is India prepared for that? I'm guessing that Maldives and other such, strategic points in the Indian Ocean will play a presence. There have been hydrographic surveys being conducted by the Chinese quite aggressively to aid submarining in the Indian Ocean. How does all of this sort of play out as far as India is concerned, as a concern?
Yes, I think a future Chinese submarine presence in the Indian Ocean is a matter of concern.
Yeah.
They're building up their SSN. SSNs are these nuclear-powered conventional attack submarines. They're conventionally armed, but they're nuclear-powered. So all the limitations that smaller diesel-electric submarines have in terms of range and endurance and high speed is neutralized by the nuclear propulsion that the SSN has, or the attack submarine has. And China is focusing a lot on that. In fact, as per estimates, by the end of this decade, China would perhaps have 20 or more SSNs in the inventory, which would mean that at any given time, I would not be surprised if a couple of SSNs do venture into the Indian Ocean and are permanently deployed here at some point, somewhere or the other Indian Ocean. Now, when you have that kind of a submarine presence, it definitely constrains the surface ship commander's ability to maneuver or his unchallenged sort of presence on the sea, because he doesn't know when he's being tracked and when is he being detected by a submarine. So that's something we need to be concerned about. How do we counter that? We have to ensure that our anti-submarine capability, whether it is from the air, whether it is on the surface, or whether it is from below the surface of the sea, is robust. We have one big advantage. For Chinese submarines to come into the Indian Ocean, they have to come through one of 3 straits. Of those 3 straits, they have to come surfaced through 2 straits, because there just isn't enough water for them to make an approach, to make a dived approach. So they have to come on surface. Therefore, the moment they enter the Indian Ocean, they can be detected and tracked. Of course, they will dive after that and they'll disappear somewhere in the bottom of the sea. But the fact of the matter is that at least you have an initial position of where they were. And from there, you can do some sort of, extrapolation and figure out where they were probably headed. So that is one part of it. That is an advantage we have. There's only one strait called the Ambar Vatai from where they can make a dive transit. The problem with that is so far south that the distance the submarine has to traverse from the Chinese mainland to the Indian mainland is considerable. I mean, Colombo is, I think, about 8,000 miles away. Chennai is almost 9,000 miles away. So that's a huge distance the submarine has to transit, which practically makes it almost, I wouldn't say impossible, but makes it very difficult to deploy conventional submarines.
Right.
So we can be reasonably sure that what they will send to the Indian Ocean will be primarily nuclear submarines. However, and here I would like to again add, they are giving Pakistan 8 AIP-equipped conventional submarines.
Exactly, yes.
In the next 6 or 7 years. Now, for a country of Pakistan's size and of Pakistan's coastline, she already has 3 French AIP-equipped submarines, 8 more, 11 submarines will be a very formidable submarine capability that Pakistan Navy will have. So in my personal opinion, I think this will be used by China to sort of contain India in the Indian Ocean or in the Arabian Sea by the presence of the Pakistani submarines. If push comes to shove, or we play this huge, great game is played out in the Indian Ocean. Because it's very important, if China has to assert itself in the Indian Ocean, it has to contain the Indian Navy in one way or another.
Yes.
As far as Indian capability goes, I think we're doing well. We have a pretty robust, long-range maritime patrol ASW capability with the P8Is. Now we're getting the Predator drones. We are focusing a lot on unmanned underwater technologies.
Yes.
So we should be able to have a good surveillance capability along the, let's say, the Eastern Indian Ocean to monitor and track Chinese submarines coming in. Plus, of course, our surface forces are being sort of augmented with very good, very contemporary ASW equipment now. Most of the new ships are coming with towed array sonars, very powerful hull-mounted sonars, etc. So I think the new Sikorsky MH-60R helicopters coming in, this was a weak link, because our Sea Kings had become old.
That's right.
So these 24 helicopters coming in will greatly enhance the fleet's integral ASW capability, the anti-submarine warfare capability. As the fleet moves, the helicopters patrol ahead, and they can detect the submarine. Then they direct the ships on to come and attack that submarine. And a submarine, for all its advantages, can get cornered very badly if there is a lot of surface forces concentrated over there. So I think we are on the right track. Obviously, we can't match the Chinese economically. Their defense budget is 5 or 6 times ours. We have a lot of other competing and conflicting sort of requirements.
Right.
But I think given our limitations and given the sort of planning, the Navy has always planned well ahead. That's one advantage the Navy has. And so I think we're doing well as far as our ability to counter a Chinese presence in the future is concerned. We can always do better. So there's no end to it.
We can do better, but we're on the right track. I'll leave it on that positive note. Thank you very much for your expert words and wisdom and putting this complex story into perspective for us. Tomorrow is when INS Jatayu will be commissioned, and like Commodore Jai Singh said when he referred to the MH-60 Romeo anti-submarine warfare helicopters, that squadron will also be commissioned tomorrow in Kochi in Kerala. So big day for the Indian Navy. All eyes will be on both these events, and we'll, of course, be tracking them live. Commodore Anil Jai Singh, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you very much for your time here on India Today. A day after a big breakthrough in the Karnataka-Pakistan Zindabad slogan case, Karnataka Home Minister says the Forensic Science Laboratory report confirms that those Pakistan Zindabad slogans were in fact raised twice inside the Karnataka Vidhan Sabha. Meanwhile, old images of the accused who've been arrested have emerged with top Congress leaders including Siddaramaiah, the Chief Minister, Rahul Gandhi and DK Shivakumar. Here's the latest.
The Karnataka government has now confirmed what India Today reported first, that Pakistan's slogans were indeed shouted in Vidhan Sabha in Bengaluru.
Twice that individual, whoever has shouted, he has shouted twice. So that has been confirmed. So based on that, FSL has not said who has said that. Based on that, we have identified 3 persons who are very close, and looking at the lip movement and so on, the police has confirmed that and arrested 3 people.
The political war of words is only escalating, with the BJP demanding that the Congress be tried for treason and investigated under the anti-terror law, UAPA.
BJP workers also have shouted pro-Pakistan. It is on record. BJP tried to close the case, but now those local workers are telling you have to investigate that matter, and the police will look into it. The law of this land will take its action.
ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯ ಪ್ರಜೆ ಕೂಗಿದ್ರು ಕೂಡ ದೇಶದ್ರೋಹದ ಕೆಲಸವೇ. ಒಬ್ಬ ರಾಜ್ಯಸಭಾ MP MLA ಯಾರೇ ಅದನ್ನು ಕೂಗಿದ್ರು ಕೂಡ ದೇಶದ್ರೋಹಿ ಚಟುವಟಿಕೆನೇ. ಅವನು ಹಿಂದೂ, ಅವನು ಮುಸಲ್ಮಾನ, ಮತ್ತೊಂದಂತ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಉದ್ಭವ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ರಾಜ್ಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಗಂಭೀರವಾಗಿ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡಿದೆ ಅಂತ ನಮಗಂತೂ ಅನ್ನಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಪ್ರಾಮಾಣಿಕವಾಗಿ ಮಾತನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ.
The 3 accused, Iltiaz, Munawar and Mohammad Shafi, have now been sent to 2-day custody. But images of them with top Congress leaders from Rahul Gandhi to the Karnataka Chief Minister and his deputy have added to Congress's embarrassment.
कर्नाटक की जनता पूछ रही है कि पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद का नारा विधानसभा के अंदर हो, किसी एक एमपी के जीतने पर हो, मुख्यमंत्री चुप, उप मुख्यमंत्री चुप, आपके राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष चुप, राहुल गांधी जी चुप। क्या आप पाकिस्तान की मदद करने के लिए पैदा हुए हैं?
Chorus is growing for the resignation of Nasir Hussain, who was elected as Rajya Sabha MP, for whom the Pakistan slogans were allegedly raised.
ನಾನು ನಿನ್ನೆ ನಾಸಿರ್ ಸರ್ ಅವರ ರಾಜ್ಯಸಭಾ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ವೇಳೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಕೂಡ ವಿಧಾನಸೌಧದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದೆ. ಅವ್ರು ಗೆಲುವು ಸಾಧಿಸಿಕೊಂಡು ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಬಂದ ಮೇಲೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಜೈಕಾರ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರು. ನಾಸಿರ್ ಹುಸೇನ್ ಜಿಂದಾಬಾದ್, ನಾಸಿರ್ ಹುಸೇನ್ ಜೈವಾಗ್ಲಿ, ನಾಸಿರ್ ಖಾನ್ ಜಿಂದಾಬಾದ್, ನಾಸಿರ್ ಸಾರ್ ಜಿಂದಾಬಾದ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಜೈಕಾರ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರು. ನಾನು ಕೂಡ ಜೈಕಾರ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದೀನಿ.
With the arrest of 3 accused and the FSL report, the Congress government in Karnataka finds itself on the back foot. With Sagai Raj and Nagarjun Dwarkanath in Bengaluru, Bureau Report, India Today.
That's it on India First. Thanks very much for watching. See you at the same time tomorrow. Elections Unlocked with Rajdeep comes up next.
डायरेक्ट प्लान
म्यूचुअल फंड स्कीम्स में खुद इन्वेस्ट करने का एक ऑप्शन है.
म्यूचुअल फंड्स खुद ही
सी जैसे मैंने फिट रहने के लिए ट्रेनर रखा है.
तो दिखता ही है भाई.
पर तू तो सेल्फ मेड है भाई.
वेल देख, मुझे फिटनेस की नॉलेज है तो आई मेड माय ओन ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम.
और तेरे ट्रेनर के पैसे भी बच गए.
हाँ
सेम विद डायरेक्ट प्लान. यहाँ मेरे कमीशन के पैसे बच गए.
सही है.
म्यूचुअल फंड निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है. योजना से जुड़े सभी दस्तावेजों को ध्यान से पढ़ें.
Water trucks on the job. The country's leading IT hub down south is facing a shortage of piped water. While summer hasn't officially arrived, scarcity has already hit Bengaluru. Now, it has become an annual struggle in a city of 10 million. With 1 million new residents added every year, the shortage of tap water is attributed to the drought that hit Karnataka last year. Private water tankers have doubled their prices. Groundwater levels have also dropped, drying up the bore wells. The Karnataka government has set aside 200 crore rupees in the budget for drinking water purposes. There are proposals to permit deeper bore wells. Building the Mekadatu Dam is viewed as a long-term solution to Karnataka's water problems. But neighbouring